He is risen. He's risen. That's the message of this morning. He is risen. But it wasn't a message that was immediately received, because when Mary and the other women went down to the tomb to anoint Jesus' body, they weren't going for a resurrection. They were going to complete a funeral ritual. But when they got down there, first of all, on the way, they said, how are we going to roll away that great big tomb? It took 2 men to put it in place. But when they got there, the stone was rolled away. And the tomb was empty. And there, folded up were the grave clothes, the grave wrappings folded and stacked in one place, and the napkin folded that covered his face, folded and put someplace else. And they couldn't figure it out. So they went back and told the disciples, and the disciples came, and Peter and John came, and they looked in, and sure enough, the tomb was empty, but they didn't know what to make of it. And so they went away, trying to figure out what happened. Mary stays alone. In verse 11 of John chapter 20, we read these words. But Mary stood outside by the tomb weeping. And as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the tomb. And she saw 2 angels in white sitting, one at the head and one at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain. Then they said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, Because they have taken my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. Now when she had said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, and did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? She, supposing him to be the gardener, said to him, Sir, if you've carried his body away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. Jesus said to her, Mary, Mary. She turned and said to him, Rabboni, which means to say, teacher. Jesus said to her, Do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brethren and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and to your Father, and to my God and your God. Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had seen the Lord and that he had spoken these things to her. This turn of events was incredible. An empty tomb, which nobody could account for. Stone rolled away. Angels sitting there saying, He's not here. He's gone. And Mary's there weeping, and she hears this voice say, Why are you seeking the living among the dead? And all she can think about is her grief at his body being stolen by somebody. And she says, listen, if you know where he is, if you've taken him, tell me where he is. I'll move him. Like she could actually pick him up and move him. And he says her name, and he says it in a way that only Jesus could say it. And she understood it was him. And she turned and she wanted to grab him, as anybody who loved someone that they had thought something happened to, and they see them again. And he said, Don't touch me, for I haven't yet ascended. I have a message for you. Go tell my brother I'm going to meet them. We have a work to do before I leave here. That's what Easter or Resurrection Sunday really means. It means that there's yet work to do. Resurrection is something very different than raising from the dead. Lazarus was raised from the dead, but he would die again. He was raised, and when he was raised, his grave clothes were on him, and they had to take them off, but he would need them again at some point. But Jesus was resurrected. And the interesting thing is, the thing that all the Gospels point out is that the first people to see Jesus after his resurrection had no idea who he was, which tells me something about resurrection. Paul says it in the book of 1 Corinthians that when we come up, those who are resurrected will be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. They will be the same, but they will be different. much like a seed that you plant in the ground, when it begins to sprout and then come up and bear fruit as a flower or as a plant or as a vegetable. It doesn't look like that seed that got planted. It's the same thing, but it's different. Or like that moth or butterfly that develops from a little caterpillar that's crawling across the ground, and it spins its cocoon and spends the night of winter in that cocoon, and in the springtime bursts forth. This little creature that used to crawl on the ground now flies. This creature that used to eat the leaves of trees now sips the nectar from flowers. It's the same, but it's different. Scientists call it metamorphosis. The Bible simply calls it change. That's what resurrection is all about. It's about change. And resurrection of the body is change of the body. But resurrection of the spirit is something that we are dealing with now. Because when Jesus went into that tomb, his disciples were completely discouraged. They were demoralized. They were afraid. They didn't know what would happen. And even when they met on that Sunday morning, they weren't meeting to have worship. They were hiding from the Jews. And Jesus comes and puts himself in the middle of them, and he says, "Peace be unto you." Resurrection means change in a positive way. Resurrection means that people who were afraid are no longer afraid. That these same men who were hiding from the officials and afraid of what would happen to them now become people who have holy boldness. And in just a few days after the Holy Spirit has filled them, they go to the temple and they preach boldly. And even though they're thrown in jail, they come right back after they've taken the beating, and they preach and they preach and they preach. And even when they're dispersed, the word says they go everywhere preaching. What happens to make somebody who is so fearful, so unsure, so uncertain, and so ignorant of some basic things? What makes them change? Resurrection. They have died to themselves, but they've resurrected and they've become the same but different. This Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, may you ask God to do something in your own life, to resurrect you, to change you from being the insecure person you've been, or the impious person you've been, or the careless person you've been, or the sinful person you've been, and change you, resurrect you, make you the same, but change you so that you will be like him. For as we become like him, we will one day live with him. And that's what resurrection means, that we are changed so that we can live with him forever. God bless you.